everybody. Welcome to LitRPG Audiobook Podcast. I am Ray, your reviewer for the evening. Tonight, I will be examining some recent and classic LitRPG audiobooks for you. Today, I'm going to begin with Travail Online, Resurrection by Brian Simmons, narrated by Andrea Parsnow. Parsnow, and I'll get to that in a second. And this book's length is 8 hours and 28 minutes.
She was looking for fish. It might take a lot of slimy little fishes to patch together something wearable, but she could be patient. She had 2 hours to kill, and she'd use both of them hunting and sewing if need be. Grinding away at crafting clothing might be difficult, but in Travail, hard play makes fun work. A dark shadow swam with the current toward Coral. She drew back her bow and let an arrow fly. It shot straight through the water and into the creature's flesh, leaving the feathered shaft poking out of the water. Coral prepared to jump down toward the water to retrieve her kill, hoping to find a fish on the other end of her arrow. Then she noticed that a system message popped up. This was no fish. Sawagan takes 56 damage. What was a Sawagan? Coral wondered. Then she found out. A river monster leapt from the rushing waters and tackled her, an arrow still sticking out of its back. It latched onto Coral like a monkey clinging to a tree trunk. Its round face was inches from Coral's, its glossy black eyes unblinking.
Okay, I'm going to take a minute here and rail about a week or so back. Last week or week before, I just jumped all over a really good narrator for mispronouncing the word ensign. He kept saying ensign, ensign, ensign. Justifiably so, I might add that I did that because it was just crazy time. But anyway, I digress, and I don't like to do that, but I do it a bit, don't I? I really do. I don't understand why. Okay, I'm doing it again. So let me go ahead. Okay, in the spirit of fairness, okay, I have to admit when I say something wrong. Now, I'm sure I mispronounce stuff all the time, but as much as I do this, I don't do it for a living. I'm doing this for fun and to share my enthusiasm for audiobooks. But I do try to make sure that everything I do is proper and correct. I mispronounced Andrea Parsnow's name. I said Parsnow. And it is said Parsnow. You can see the little thing I made up there, the little meme. Golf ball, par, and then snow. I know it's not funny, but I liked it. So anyway, Parsnow. And it should be easy to make sense of it from that, okay? So if you guys ever catch me doing something stupid like that, call me out. I want to extend my apologies to Andrea for pulling a Sweeney Todd on her last name. Anyway, let's get back to what you came for. You came to listen about Travail today. Again, I really don't like skipping the first book, but I did get this book, and I promised that I would get this reviewed. Even though I've read the first book, I want to do this one because I was given this book to review, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll get to the first one at some point. Everybody's favorite seamstress or tailor, Coral, is back, and they kind of open the book with the wanton slaughter of some very vicious humanoids from the deep. A great Roger Corman classic B movie, if you haven't seen it or heard of it. And she is making some awesome armor from their skins. I mean, it's like Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, okay? And I don't think you can get better openings when you have a lady who's just minding her business fishing, and suddenly some pals show up, and she ends up killing a murderous fishman. Now, I played D&D for years, and I have never pronounced this name properly, and I've just railed about pronouncing things. Shogavin, whatever it is. I can't do it with my mouth. It don't want to work like that. I got a mouthful of marbles when I say it. So I'm just going to call them the humanoids from the deep, because it's kind of crazy time for me to even try to say that. And I can't even imagine how she does this with just a pair of scissors, which is just classical. You have to open a book and then eviscerate by scissors is the first thing that comes up. That's a great way to start it. It really caught my attention. So, I mean, if you're going to do something, really stand out. And gutting a fishman who's intent on killing you with just a pair of snippety-snip scissors that you do to, make some leather armor, it's pretty cool. Now, around the time, eventually, there are some shenanigans that are taking place in the real world by the game developers, the devs who feel that the game's economy is generating too much income and it's kind of damaging the real economy and the game economy, with the players making so much money. Now, if you read the books, you know that no one in the books is rich. They're struggling to get by. Basically, they make enough just to continue playing the game and survive. And the game developers are trying to kind of eliminate their ability to even do that effectively anyway. Okay, so what they do is they implement a plan that will obliterate the in-game economy and strip players of their wealth. How do they do this? They go about by brainwashing the players into becoming religious zealots who want to give all of their money to a church to rebuild God's temple. Now, of course, the ethical implications are very obvious. The moral quandaries are there. And it's one of those things where Coral kind of escapes it by pure accident, and she sees what's happening. She knows, and she tries to warn people. And Simon really plays this aspect of the horrors of what would be possible later in life, because I could totally see this being something that, could be done. If a game developer could implant something in your mind and make you want to spend more money somewhere, they sure as hell could do it. So he plays this with different angles. One member of the party wholeheartedly joins the clerical staff and becomes a priest, and does one heck of a job raising funds for the god. In other words, he kind of switches sides. He's a turncoat. And he does it for reasons, but it's not good ones. Another player gets the whammy put on him, and the others kind of have to struggle to keep him from giving away everything he owns. In the real world and in the VR one, I mean, he's pretty much destitute at some point in the book. Simon's also plays with a theme of betrayal and forgiveness. And I'm not saying forgiveness is granted, okay? I'm not saying that at all. Only that he plays with the notion and how people can react to the trust that has been broken. Coral really feels betrayed, justifiably so, I might add, by one of her teammates. A teammate actually betrays them in another area, and the game company breaks trust by manipulating minds. So there's a whole bunch of different levels. It's like Shrek with those layers of onions. They're like ogres. Ogres have layers. They have layers. There's the player layer. There's the overall arching gamer layer, and then there's the developer layer of trust being broken. So I mean, there's a lot of things that go here, and I think he really plays this pretty wisely. Trust isn't given lightly. And when it's earned, it's worthwhile. And so when it's broken, it's even more devastating. And the book is really emotional. Plus, it has some really cool fight scenes. Personally, I loved that the poison that the one player has wanted to be used and kept calling out to him for it to kill other people. When it was employed, all I could think of was the Red Wedding from the Game of Thrones and the pie scene from Stand By Me. It was wickedly brilliant and funny and in an evil kind of way. And it wasn't written for laughs, but I sure as hell got a good snicker out of it. I mean, it was just right there. I mean, it was funny the way it was implemented. Coral, of course, is the heart of the book. She's the team's center and moral compass, and Andrea plays her so well. I know that she strives to put emotions in that we readers aren't even supposed to know are there. She tries to do that layer thing so that, she knows something that we don't. She's talked to the author. They kind of have an understanding about what's going on or where these characters are headed. So she tries to infiltrate your mind with that unwittingly. You don't know what's happening. She's a lot like the game developers in that sense, if you think about it for a moment. Her reaction to Coral's betrayal is completely cinematic. You can feel the hurt and the reluctance in her voice, her need to get away, her need to start anew. It's pretty damn impressive. And I don't mean to downplay her ability to play the other characters, because you actually understand the other players' motives. And I really sympathized with them. I mean, each one in turn, I understood why they were doing what they were doing, why they were doing what they were doing, why they felt it was essential to do it the way they did it. She conveyed all of that with just this thing right here, her voice. Well, not her throat, but her voice. And that's one hell of a juggling act that she pulls off. She never fails to impress me, okay? I mean, really, she does this, and I know very few narrators that can get the emotional layers or depth into their words as they're read as she does. I'm also so glad that the snake on the cover with the apple in its mouth is explained, because I was really curious about that. I have to say that it was probably the only weak spot in the book that I found in the story. It just kind of came off as a little silly when compared to the rest of the book. There was a lot of depth there, but that scene kind of just was, okay, the snakes are feeding them apples. I just didn't think it really fit as well as it should have. But hey, I mean, it's there for a reason, right? It just felt out of place compared to the various moral quandaries that each player had to deal with. Each character had to go through different things, and this was just kind of like out of left field for me, okay? I mean, when your character's dealing with things like a corrupt lord, or putting yourself over the team because of jealousy, or dealing with betrayal from someone you might be in love with, or at the very least you respect very highly, the snakes here usage, it was less effective than it should have been. So it was just one bump than I thought it should have been compared to everything else. I mean, the rest of the story gelled really well, and it flowed impressively, but that one scene just kind of threw me. But the monsters, the snakes themselves, were really creepy and cool, and I liked that they ate experience points as opposed to health points. That's even worse, if you ask me, because you can die, you still come back at the right level. Here, they can take you right down to nothing. But the opposite that happens is even cooler. I don't want to spoil that for anybody. So I'm going to award this book 8.1 stars just because of the depth and the character growth that takes place. The story is intriguing and enjoyable, and I know you're going to like this book. Book 1 is just as good. There's a lot of introductions and meetings and setup for the world. Here, the world is set. You know what's going on. You know what's happening. And the players pretty much are already involved. So this is just a starting point where you can just fly by. You don't have to get the wheels on the car or anything like that. It's ready to roll. And Simons does take that straight into the fire. I mean, he just takes off. So it's a good book. I highly recommend it, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, so up next, we have a book called Pangea Online, Death and Axes. Prop guy, that is not an axe, that is a sword. I have talked to you about this. How many times? Yeah, that's an axe. Okay, prop guy. Thank you. Pangea Online is written by S.L. Rowland. It's narrated by Justin Thomas James and Lori Catherine Winkle. And the time is 7 hours and 33 minutes.
A loud roar echoes from behind me, and everyone falls silent. The battle stops for a moment, and all eyes turn toward the sound, towards me. The rumbling of giant footsteps causes rubble to tumble down the mountain, and I'm afraid of what is about to appear. Alicia's eyes meet with mine for a moment. What's left of the orc forces abandon the fight and scatter down the mountain pass. All the while, the ground shakes more and more from whatever creature approaches. I turn my back to the dwarves and princess, readying myself for what comes next. I receive a notification telling me I have a new message. You have been invited to join Alicia's party. Do you accept? Yes or no? I don't think twice before accepting. As soon as I join, I'm able to hear their private chat.
What the hell is coming?
Asks one of the lady dwarves.
Calm down. There is nothing that we cannot overcome together.
The voice is Alicia's. I'd recognize that voice anywhere.
Just sit right back, and you're going to hear a yarn about a boy who's doomed to toil away his life in a virtual mine. A boy who has no choice but to waste his life digging out electronic ore in order to take care of himself and those he loves. Now, that is until he discovers a chest full of loot that grants him a free pass to wherever he wants to go in his game, okay, and enough digital currency to see this become a reality. And that's when he learns there are only two things certain in life: death and axes. Jeez, oh, peas, prop guy. Now, the boy is Easel, and his struggles may sound a little similar to another book, one in which a kid has to escape mines and win a game-wide contest. I can't remember what it is. Give me a moment. It was Dodge Tank! Yeah, Dodge Tank. Thanks, prop guy. He's just on a roll tonight, guys. Yeah, Dodge Tank. Yeah, so now, while the story seems similar, it's only a facile one at best. Both protagonists who work in the digital mines, and both have a protagonist who win a game-wide contest, or have a game-wide contest they need to win, I should say, well, to make their lives better. Other than that, those two items, their stories are radically different. Pangea, by the way, was released several months prior to Dodge Tank, so the similarities are just coincidental. Anyway, Easel is a pretty good kid who just happens to meet a very popular player his first day in the game as an actual player and not a miner. And he manages to impress her with a cheat that he really doesn't realize he has. The two slowly become friends, and when the inevitable announcement of the worldwide event comes and it says it's going to give you money and fame and game bonuses, they both agree that they're going to help one another out until the final contest, because just like they say in Highlander, there can be only one. Now, here is where the story reminds me of Harmon Cooper's Proxima Galaxy. As in the game that Easel is in, it also hosts multiple worlds in different genres. There were several things that I enjoyed about the contest trials. First, the clue actually misled our heroes originally, and they didn't solve the first one. Somebody else does. That's pretty slick. I like that it's not something that they just automatically cotton onto and figure out and go and do what they got to do. That's good writing, okay? Secondly, we get to go to some new and exciting worlds. And third, the game is set so that it takes innovation and wits to advance just as much as it does levels, for the most part. I mean, there are some things where you have to have a mount in order to participate, so on and so forth. But Easel, for example, completely obliterates one challenge by doing some innovative stuff, things he didn't even realize he was doing that was so far out of the box. So that was pretty smooth, too. The characters all carry their own weight. They're all interesting, and when a betrayal occurs, it cuts to the quick, just like it should. Easel, or Lone Wolf, as I prefer to call him, is crushed, but he pushes ahead anyway. And that is the crux of the tale. Perseverance, dedication, determination. You really get to see what kind of a man Easel is by the way he earns his mount, for example, and by the way that he handles the betrayal of someone who is really close to him. The fight scenes are good. They're fun. And like I say, the mount scene where he gets that was probably one of the best parts of the book, although the zombie fight was good, the race was good. There's a lot of different standout scenes all throughout the book. And Easel's introduction to the game he's never played before is pretty funny when he gets into his first battle. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. There's things that happen in his first battle that just, it's chuckling. Okay, you just chuckle all through it. The book is light and fun. It's not heavy. It's not overwhelming, and it's not depressing. This is not like a post-apocalyptic world where he's going to, have bleary, bleak future to see after he gets out of the game. No, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not that bad. It's actually fun, and I think that while the plot's something you've seen maybe a few times at this point, which there are going to be some things that overlap, you won't mind because Roland really manages to keep things very interesting. So you have to ask me about the narration, right? I mean, I've got to talk about it. How was it? Well, this is my sound booth spotlight for the day, okay? So is it worth the time and effort to listen? Is it amazing? Well, the only thing I can say is this is an SBT, Sound Booth Theater production, so it's going to be a real treat. It's going to be great. And I really love the pairing of Justin Thomas James and Laurie Catherine Winkle. They have become, for me, the Bonnie and Clyde of the Audible world. They are narrators who come in with guns blazing and run off with the story like it was the last hamburger in a world filled with wimpies. Okay, I'm sorry. I know there's people out there who are under 40 that don't understand what I just said. That's a Popeye reference, and Wimpy always said, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, and then that's all he ate was hamburgers. So, okay. Anyway. The incredible part is the two of them are not even in the same studio when they record. One is in Georgia, and one is in Canada. What? As Justin would say. How can there be that much chemistry with two people who are so far apart? They pair up more and more often, and I really like to think that their latest efforts, such as with Dave Wilmar's The Land of the Undying, has been their best effort to date. Now here, because this is earlier, of course, you can really see them unifying as collaborators. And these people are of the highest quality collaboration. Like I say, they are like Bonnie and Clyde. They pull off the narration in a flash, in a flurry, that never lets you know what's coming. And I love the way they handle the tale, the characters, and the attention. They never let it become boring, ever. And I do believe that there was one slight audio flub, but it was nothing major. It was a line that was repeated when the princess so-and-so saw Easel. It was very brief, and it negligible, but I have to say that. Otherwise, the studio production audio portion was flawless. So, you're asking me, what's the verdict? Well, the book is solid. It has good writing. It plays out tropes that, doesn't tropify your mind with them. It does that. Even though there's tropes, you're not getting burned out, and you're not saying, well, I've heard this story 1,000 times. Yep, I said that as soon as I looked at it, and it came out, and it was okay. It was tropey, but it was okay tropey. And it has some killer narration. It also plays out like this could have been a standalone novel, and I respect that a great deal. Not every book needs a cliffhanger. This one wraps up pretty well, and even though there is another book in the series, Roland unquestionably makes me want the next book, Magic and Mayhem, as well as his other new novel, not yet on Audible, Vestiges, which is a post-apocalyptic novel. So I'm eager for more, and that means an 8.25. Cannot wait for more. You have to ask for it. You got to go to your store. No, you can just get it right on Audible. You don't even have to leave the home. How much more convenient can you ask that to be? Get the book. You'll love it. Rise and shine, campers. It's feedback loop time.
Morning assassin!
No! Rise and shine, campers! It's feedback loop time!
Morning assassin!
Oh, shit! Rise and shine, campers! It's feedback loop
Morning
time!
assassin!
Oh, God! Rise and shine, campers! It's feedback loop time!
Morning assassin!
Not this time! That's right. You got it. Hey. Well, I guess you can tell by now, I'm doing the feedback loop books 1 through 3 by Harmon Cooper. It's narrated by Jeff Hayes and the Sound Booth Theater, and it is 16 hours and 2 minutes in length.
Aiden is in a basketball jersey with the initials M.A. across his back. In his left hand is his Wall Macy's net shopping bag full of cactus, and across his chest are 10 horseshoes held to his body by a leather belt. A fly swatter is tucked into the front of his basketball shorts alongside a pair of rusty gardening shears. "Do you see Tony?" he asks me, roller skating in a circle. He wears a pair of vintage roller skates with leather uppers and hardened toes. "What's he look like again?"
"Fat, lots of hair, big sunglasses, little mustache."
"Here comes the Godfather now."
"How many, Quantum?"
8, including the big cheese. I place my boxing glove on my hand, item 32, and twist the handle on my antique selfie stick, item 99. I've been whipped to death by a selfie stick before. It hurts like the dickens. Item 353, my football pads, add some bulk to my frame, as does my vintage Bengals football helmet.
Okay, so since you're interested, I have to say this is really just about as brilliant a book as it can be. And I really feel this should become a Netflix series. It would so crush Altered Carbon. They just have to add a touch more nudity, but I don't think Quantum would complain about having to go to a few strip clubs just to help the ratings. This is a sweeping story that begins with the Groundhog Day setting and transitions into a reality-hopping mind trip that you just won't forget anytime soon. Quantum, the main character, the MC, the protagonist, is very interesting and funny. The action is cinematic, and the emotions are like a rabid meth head on Red Bull who just found out his dog got run over but's alive. I mean, it's a whirlwind. The story easily flips settings and does so effortlessly. The concept is so out there, I do believe it was on an episode of The X-Files. Maybe. Now, this is not one book. This is a collection of three all-inspiring, jaw-dropping stories that centers on a fast-talking, hard-drinking mug who's trapped in a VR world. And I think he suffers from a Stockholm syndrome because he really doesn't want to leave by the time he gets to the point where he's at in the story. Quantum Hughes is a character you'll either love or completely hate. I don't think there can be a middle ground. Harmon Cooper is a standout writer who must have been tripping on peyote all day long to come up with some of the stuff that he conceives of in this book. Plus, not only is he imaginative, but he has a real way with words. Most importantly, with dialogue. The words his character speaks are believable, emotional, and funny when they need to be. You'll really get to like his cast of characters, and you will fall in love with the whole game concept that he creates. Now, it's the fast talk and the creative use of everyday items, such as implements of murder, implements that wouldn't normally be used for murder, that make Quantum stand out. And I'm just waiting for him to kill somebody with a paperclip, to be honest with you. I could see that coming at some point. He's got disco balls and golf clubs and, weed eaters and you name it, not to mention the other conventional things. But Hughes is a bit of a conundrum, as he seems to have flawless pop culture memory to draw upon, but he can barely recall what he was like before going into the Proxima universe. Now, just to explain, Proxima is a game design company that houses all of its games in one shared universe. So while Hughes had been living like Sam Spade in a noirish 40s style game, he also gets to visit other worlds and games as well. Now that's a real plus, as it makes sense for a company to umbrella all of their product in one universe, and it makes it fun knowing that we might get to visit a fantasy realm or a steampunk universe. We do. Just so you know, we do. It's the 40s noir setting that really sucked me into this book series. I am an old-time noir fan. I have probably seen every black and white movie that has some sort of a gumshoe or detective in it, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I've watched them all. I mean, I grew up on these things with my grandmother. Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon. These are movies that just were like bread and butter to me as a kid. So, I can appreciate everything that he does here. I mean, it really, really works. Most worlds here are fantasy-based, which is something you see, but the noirish 40s setting is not something you see very often in LitRPG. So, it does stand out. There are some horror books that come out in this sort of thing, but noir 40s style books, that's a never been done, and I doubt will be done anytime soon again kind of thing. It's all vast in this universe, and it's all fantastic. The attitude for the book, though, is more of a dead men don't wear plaid kind of vibe, as it is kind of hard to take Hughes seriously all the time. Another plus you get is you have characters with names like Quantum Hughes and Francis Euphoria. Total fun. Total fun. The series does bounce through 3 different worlds, unless you count the real world, and then it's 4. Each book is laced with humor, and it rails against things like government interference on what we eat, how we act, how we think. Each member of the Dream Team, which is what Quantum had created before he got stuck in the noir world, is fully fleshed out and have distinctive, quirky personalities of their own. No one plays a second fiddle to Hughes, which is impressive, since he technically should steamroll over any character he encounters when there's a clash of personalities. Alright, do I have to talk about Jeff Hayes? Hells yeah, because I have no qualms admitting he is absolutely my favorite narrator by far. The guy is so talented, he could win a yodeling contest with a ventriloquist dummy while gargling chocolate syrup. Yep, I told you he's my favorite. In all sincerity, the man is a master of the vocal arts, like Doctor Strange, but with words, and he can do no wrong in my eyes. Honestly, Hayes is the only cat that I could see pulling off Quantum's incessant ramblings. He not only talks fast, but he infuses the lines with such perfect comedic timing that I know it's not easy to pull off. I will reiterate, Hayes knows his characters, and I know that he is the only guy that can pull some of them off. When I think of Jade from the awesome War Eternus series, I can't think of anyone else being able to play her either. It's the same thing here with Quantum Hughes. No one else could play Hughes. So he's got 2 locks on characters that are amazing, as far as I'm concerned. And Miller, as much as I love Miller, Miller is an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation, and it could be done by somebody else. Not as well as Hayes, but it could be done. But these two, impossible. He is irreplaceable with this. This means that the pairing of Cooper and Hayes is almost powerful enough to create a rift in space-time if it's not handled appropriately. I hope you're hearing my warning, guys. It might even cause a feedback loop in our own digital universe. Because I think that, Elon Musk has said we live in a digital universe. So that's something to consider. The truth is that their combo makes for one heck of a fine time listening to an amazeball story that you will have never seen anywhere before. That's a guarantee. That's a promise. This book is packed with action, morning assassin, backstabs, intrigue, and is very noticeable in its loving homage to movies like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon while dancing into the VR territory. I cannot count the number of times that I burst out laughing or was choked up by a character's actions. This series, the collection is well worth the money or credit you plunk down for it. I mean, you get 3 books for the cost of 1 credit. You really can't ask for more than that. 3 amazing books. I mean, honestly, this should be at least 1.5 to 2 credits just based on how good this stuff is. So I'm going to have to say it's easily an 8.4 stars. It's hard for me to quantify this with a number because there's 3 books. I loved all of them. Each one had a little high, a little low, but nothing so low that I would even think it impacted anything. They're all amazing. The 4th book, I've reviewed that. It just carries on. I just don't know how Cooper comes up with all of these series. He cranks them out, and everything he does just blows me away. I love his writing, just like I love Hayes' narration. So if you love books that are quirky, full of sass, blood-spattering action, and fast-talking MCs, you will love this book. Get the collection. Get all 3 separately. It doesn't matter. You're going to enjoy them all. So have fun and get this book now. Okay, so the very next book I'm going to be reviewing is called Reboot, Afterlife Online by Domino Finn. It's narrated by Justin Thomas James. What? And it's got a length of 10 hours and 35 minutes.
The imps hopped and chittered in noisy unison, mere animals unable to hide their growing anticipation for blood. The 2 goblins were more restrained. They stood upright, wore torso coverings of thick hide, and held long daggers. The little stickers were twisted and jagged, and probably loaded with 5 kinds of hep. Kyle. We're so screwed, bro. I smiled. The party chat wouldn't be visible to the pagans. It was a great way to strategize in secret, provided we had the concentration to apply it. Talon. Don't worry. Let's keep our heads and stay defensive. You still have that grenade, right? Kyle. Ready and waiting. Tricksy spies, accused the goblin captain, waving his blade at us. I knew that merchant wasn't alone. I shivered. Somehow the fact the creature could talk made him more vile. The imps howled at the reference to the beheaded man on the road. They wanted more of the same. Reboot is one of the very first LitRPG books that I've read. And when I say that, I quite literally mean I listened to, because my time for reading has vanished. Audiobooks now dominate my life. And to say the book wowed me would be an understatement. I came into this right after Delvers and Divine Dungeon and Morning Wood. So it was most likely the very first LitRPG full pure blood novel that I'd gotten. I'm not discounting the other books as LitRPG. As far as I'm concerned, there are some among the best of those out there in that genre. But this one is a bit heavier on the crunch than those ones. It's also got levels and stats and character sheets and so on. So, it's real LitRPG heavily, I should say, as opposed to the others, because as much as I love Delvers, they do kind of level up, but it's incidental to what they do. They have to eat little things, and when they gain certain powers and get to a certain point, then they're judged okay to go more powers than what they have at that point. So they do level up, but it's not straightforward like in a video game where you kill so many things and boom, you've got it. They have no idea how far they have to progress to level, and that's why I say that. Divine Dungeon, Cal, he has a way to level, but it's not, you're a level 10 dungeon today and 11, 12. He's an alphabetical dungeon. And the layout for how you get there and experience isn't as cut and dried as it is for other books like this. So this is really one of the first full-blood LitRPG books that I'd read.
and it really cemented my love of the genre, okay? The concept really reminded me of one of my favorite series ever, the Bobiverse, with the We Are Legion, We Are Bob book, because in Bob, the protagonist dies and then kind of wakes up in an altered reality, so to speak. He's a virtual mind. And that's the same thing that happens here. The MC is killed, and he is awakened online in this game. Afterlife, he's there because he's dead. So he kind of just basically just submits to what happened with him and renames himself Talon and tries to come to grip with the fact that he and the people he meets are all dead, having been uploaded at some point after their passing. He gets a goofy roommate who wants to do nothing more than sit around the apartment and, watch movies and eat snacks and stuff like that, which, hell, it sounds like it's my son. The more I read it, but he's not quite as surfer dude, or whatever you want to call it, mentality as this guy is. Talon, on the other hand, decides that he is going to make the most out of his new life and sets off to level up and have some fun. Now, a few things happen along the way that kind of make him upset and curious. First of all, he is not permitted to speak to anyone on the outside. He is repeatedly denied that privilege. Also, whenever he contacts customer support, he gets the runaround. And by the way, the customer support bits are probably some of the best things about the book. They are witty, cutting, hilarious, and his antics in the game also get him into some trouble, as he ends up attracting the interest of a player known only as Lucifer. Now, Lucifer is on the dev's crap list and is wanted for a variety of electronic crimes, so to speak. Talon has to wonder who he should believe. The mods who won't let him contact the outside world, or the villain who tells him more of what's going on than anybody else has since he's arrived. The book itself is part action, part mystery, and is all about the characters and their development and growth. That's not to say it's not about a hell of a lot of fighting and battling and war. There is. This is a rare book in which I loved the grinding aspect as much as I did everything else. So much to a point that I was a little perturbed when the main plot line kind of kicked into gear and they ended up stopping grinding. Talon has a lot going going against him. He's got a lot going for him too, but it's against him. And his biggest issue is just getting to the truth of what happened to him for real. He knows there's something hinky. He knows there's a guy behind a curtain who's not letting him see the truth. He is not allowed to know what happened, and it's driving him nuts. Okay? Finn plays his card so close to the vest that when the revelation comes, it's actually a revelation. It's not something you see coming because of a whole lot of clues along the way. There's just this, and then there it is. If you've got it figured out ahead of time, you are Sherlock Holmes. Okay? No, I'm not to say that it's I'm obtuse, but I was into the story, and I enjoyed it, and I didn't try to, solve the mystery. I'm not Fred and Velma and Shaggy. I let the mystery slide by sometimes and just enjoy the story. Sometimes I do get into it. Here, I wanted to see what was going to happen and let it unfold, just like I was watching a movie, and I didn't, I'm eating popcorn. It's popcorn night. I let it happen, and it was fun, and it was exciting. Okay? You also really want to side against the game's creators who've been keeping things from Talon and Company. Oh, hey, and an added bonus, just I'm going to throw this in here as I'm railing on that stuff. Talon gets to carry a spear, and I can totally respect that he goes against expectations of a standard weapon. Every PC that I know in fantasy or whatever, 99% of the time, they either carry a hammer or a sword. Okay, now there's not very many other options you have, but the spear is a nice touch. The way that Talon interacts with the world and the monsters is far from what you would expect a player character to do, and that helps to keep your attention and the plot moving forward. And man, does this story just kind of cruise by, okay? But what I was saying was, the whole thing with the mystery, it's there, and it's really intriguing, but it's not the whole story. It's kind of a offset to the main thing that's happening. Okay, and when it does come, it is kind of a kick in the feels. It's a flying nut crunch, if you want to know the truth of it. I mean, if it was me, I don't know what I would do. I would probably curl up on the floor and cry for about 3 or 4 days and just go watch movies with my roommate after that. Now, another bonus for me is that this book was my introduction to Justin Thomas James as a narrator. And I have to say that his characterization of Talon's alchemist roommate was simultaneously funny and heart-wrenching. Okay, remember, all these folks are dead. They all have backstories. And James adds so much emotion that I really felt like what happened to this character happened to him in real life. I mean, there's a lot of feeling there. And I know that's not the case. But, I mean, honestly, if you heard him talk, if he was testifying in court, you'd say, holy crap, this occurred to this man. This is what happened to him, okay? He's lived through this. So I can really see how he's changed in so short a time because he's such a phenomenal narrator now that I can see just the little differences than how he does things then as he does now. And there's not a lot, but he has really just knocked himself into a whole new league lately. I mean, honestly, the last book of his I listened to, was Dave Wilmoth's book, Land of the Undying, and he and Lori Catherine Winkle just oh man, they steal the show. And I think I've done another review where I say that those two are like Bonnie and Clyde of the narration world. That there's a reason for that. He is just an incredible narrator, and he's fun to listen to, and he brings a lot to the story. I mean, if the story's here written, he takes it here verbally. So, I mean, there's a lot that he does. And what I mean by that is he literally brings the story to life, okay? And that's not easy to do in a book full of dead people, Okay? So I did this review because book 3 is coming out soon, okay? I know I want everyone to understand what a great series this has been thus far. This is my introduction to you. Go out and get this book before book 3 hits the shelves, and believe me, when it hits Audible, I'm going to be the first guy in line trying to get it because I've enjoyed book 1 and 2. It's just a phenomenal series. There's a lot that happens. There's not just a straightforward fight. It's not just a simple book. There's tons of stuff that occurs that goes on, and it's worth your time. Don't miss out. The book is easily, I don't know if I said it before, but it is easily an 8.3 stars. And right now, that is enough to fill my sky. Okay? So go get this and get ready for that new book that's coming out. You will not regret it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate you taking your time to watch or listen to the show. If you want to support us, we would ask that you could go and like the LitRPG Podcast Facebook page or the YouTube page, or just share and like the video. Also, I would ask if you could to please leave a comment below. I like to get feedback and see how I can improve, and anything I can do to make the show better, that's what I'm going to listen to. So make sure you leave a comment, and I'll be happy to get back to you. For the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast, I'm Ray. Keep listening. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Thank you.